Welcome into the Mississippi Salute Podcast. I am your host, Ray Coleman. I serve as the Director of Communications for Mississippi Veterans Affairs, and this is a new venture that we have. We're very excited to bring it to you. This podcast will not only highlight our agency, but we think that it's important that we highlight heroes from across the Magnolia State. So yes, you're going to hear from people who work for Mississippi VA, but we're also going to step outside of that. We're going to hear from residents, from folks who have served in our United States military in different conflicts. You'll hear from World War II veterans all the way up to current veterans today. You're going to hear from leaders, whether it be our board members, whether it be people who are active duty, folks that may be in the civilian life now that have retired. We're going to try to reach out to all walks of life with the main focal point of service and serving America's heroes. That's what we do here at Mississippi VA, and we're excited to do it. But before we get into that, we have to tell you about our agency and some of the things that we do. And there's no better person to bring on for the first episode to join me than our executive director, Mark Smith. He's with me now, and I'm very happy to bring him to y'all. I will tell you, it took a little bit of twisting of the arm. Not really. It really didn't. We're excited to sit with you all in the first episode and have Director Smith kind of talk about a lot of things. So first, before we get into any of that, sir, I thank you for joining us here on the Mississippi Salute Podcast.
Yes, sir. It's a great honor and a privilege to be here, and especially to be the first episode.
Yeah.
I look forward to our discussion today.
I do as well. Before we get into Mississippi VA, like I said, I think it's important that we hear from our leader first, but also I want people to get to know you. And so I start with, give people an idea of your military service, your background. How did you get into the service? Where did you finish? Where you've been? You can talk about as much or as little as you would like to when we talk about your military service to our state and nation.
Yes, I joined the Army right out of high school in 1978. Spent 28 years in the Army. The first 6 years I was an enlisted soldier, and I had some really great leadership as an enlisted soldier that was pushing me to go to officer candidate school and to further my career. So I went ahead and went to officer candidate school in 1982 and commissioned in 1983 as a second lieutenant. I was able to serve in many different capacities as an officer. I served in the first Gulf War. I commanded at all levels in the military. My background includes, most of it was in the military police.
Yeah.
And then I spent some time in the finance, and I spent some time in logistics. My final duty assignment was the director of logistics for the Mississippi National Guard. Yeah. Which turned out to be the most challenging job I ever had, because just as I was selected to do this job, I had been there about a year. Hurricane Katrina came in.
Congratulations.
Yes, it was quite the experience. But just like here at the Mississippi VA, I had a great staff. I had people that did not know the word of quit and just pushed through, and we were feeding 15 or 20,000 people a day. We were responsible for all the recovery down there. We had great leadership with the Guard, with General Harold Cross as the Adjutant General. So, we were able to accomplish what we did. So now I sit back and look at, like, Florida, what they're going through, and I have the memories of what all we had to do.
Sure.
So my heart goes out to the people there and the military members there that are working so hard to get everything back to whatever normal is. And
Sure.
just like in Mississippi, it would take many years and lots of money to get there.
The thing that I've noticed about you and I appreciate about you is when you talk about your service in the military, you light up like instantly. You can recount stories, just great memories and the great relationships that you've built. You talk about General Cross. I've seen you have conversations, heard personal accounts when you talk about General Irvin, one of our board members, General George Irvin. How important are those relationships to you, not just in your capacity today, but in helping you get to this point in your career?
I wouldn't be where I am today without them. I worked for a guy when I first started for the state, Colonel Don Taylor. First time I walked in his office, I noticed that he had a plastic turtle affixed to the top of his coat rack. So the entire time I was talking to him, I kept trying to figure out, why is the turtle up there? So finally, at the end of our meeting, I just asked him, hey, sir, what's the turtle for? And he said, I glued it up there. So every day when I come to work, I look at that turtle and it reminds me I did not get to where I am without the help of a whole lot of people.
Wow.
and that was always stuck with me, to how we don't get to where we are by ourselves.
Yeah.
And people like General Irvin, we have a really great story. When my first son was born, he was my TAC officer when I was going through OCS, and he's also an aviator.
Yeah.
So my son was born, and we were out in the middle of the woods, and so he came out there to get me and said, hey, the commandant said I need to take you to Jackson to see your child. So he put me in a helicopter and flew me to Jackson. and during that time when I was there was a huge thunderstorm came up between us and Camp Shelby. And he called me and he said, hey, we got to go or we're going to be stuck here all night. And I got to get you back in the woods. So he flew me back and we had to fly way around the thunderstorm and everything, but all of that worked out safely. So when I graduated, they gave both of us a plaque, and his was a personal drawing of an artist that had a helicopter with a little baby hung under it like a stork.
Wow.
So we still talk about that today. And as a matter of fact, when I worked for Department of Human Services, he was the director of HUD for Mississippi. Yeah. And I went to his office one day for a meeting, and I looked up, and that's what I saw on his wall was a picture of that drawing of him with the helicopter and the little baby hung up under. So those kind of relationships are lifetime relationships that you never lose. But I've been so lucky to have such great mentors as him, and like I said, General Cross and so many others. And that's what I try to do today is I try to replicate to others what they did for me.
Yeah.
You're always trying to help people grow, and you training them and you pushing them to do better so they can not only do better for themselves, but help other people.
Sure. For sure. You mentioned, your relationship with General Irvin, and then that cross from military to state service as well. You mentioned some of your state service. I want to dive into that a little bit. Over 15 years, 16 years of state service to Mississippi, and you've been to a couple of places. Kind of give folks a background of where you've been and the leadership roles that you've held at those different state agencies.
When I first retired in 2006, the state was still recovering from Hurricane Katrina, and we were receiving massive amounts of federal dollars. And part of those dollars were going to the Department of Human Services to rebuild infrastructure and to take care of things down there, such as daycares. And so people could get back to work, they would have somewhere to leave their children. So General Cross knew Colonel Don Taylor, the one I mentioned a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And I was getting ready to retire, and General Cross just said, hey, why don't you go talk to this guy? The state still needs your help because you have a strong background in finance to help him distribute this money so we can get it out quicker and get people recovered. So I started working there, working on that money. And soon after I started, Colonel Taylor promoted me to Deputy Executive Director for the agency. So I stayed there till 2016. And I left there and went to the Department of Archives and History to help them finish out building the 2 museums and to get them all the displays set up and go through that contracting process.
Sure.
And an opportunity presented itself at the Public Service Commission to go over there and be the Director of Finance and Personnel. And I went over there and spent 4 years working for the 3 commissioners, Public Service Commissioners, which was really interesting to see how they process things that impact every Mississippian, because everybody pays a electricity bill and everybody pays a gas bill, and to learn those intricate processes that they have to go through to approve a rate increase or to approve, like they did here recently, a rebate to everybody.
Sure.
Because they felt like everybody had been overcharged. So they have a really tough job, and they really do a good job. And while I was at Department of Human Services, I did a lot of work with Child Protection Services. And it really became, it really hit me in the heart, dealing with abused kids and foster kids, and for whatever reason. So I had an opportunity to go back and be the Deputy Commissioner for Child Protection Services. So I just jumped at it, because it's something that once you do it, it never gets out of your system. Yeah. Just trying to help those kids, help those parents recover so they can get their kids back.
Yeah.
And to make sure that the kids that you never return are able to accomplish things in life, to go to college and to do things and overcome the trauma that they have experienced in their young lives. And then Mr. Pickering called me one day and asked me to come over and talk about a position, and the rest is history from that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So, to go from helping children and helping families get reunited and reestablished, and helping kids become successful, which is part of the stuff that, as I mentioned earlier, that General Irvin and General Cross, if it wasn't for people like that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Absolutely.
So I felt like I was trying to give back some of the stuff that they had given me over the years.
Sure.
So I came here, and, what better way to come to work every day than to serve veterans.
Moving on to here at Mississippi VA, you've been with us now since, is it April?
April 1st.
Since April. What has stood out to you? Things that you may have already known about our agency and what it is that we do, or things that you just learned, surprisingly, since you've been along? What has stood out to you about Mississippi Veterans Affairs?
One of the things that I've learned is it kind of flies under the radar because they do the staff does such a great job. Yeah. You don't hear about it in the paper, and you don't read bad things about it. And it's all because of the dedicated staff and the dedicated contractors that we have, and the people that are dedicated to take care of our veterans. Yeah. Because we all know that we would not have the freedoms that we have today without what they have sacrificed. And
absolutely.
When I go to the homes and visit, we have, as you well know, a wing where we keep our older residents that have dementia and those type things. And when I go there and visit them, it just really hurts my heart, because I look at them and I know at one time they were hard charging war fighters, and now they're suffering from the mental incapacitation of dementia, and I can't help them. That's what hurts the most. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to help them. So that's one of the biggest things. But we do have a great staff that does know how to help them and provides a great service to them every day. But you'll never find a more caring, dedicated, no task too big, no request too small that they will take care of every day. And also, I learned a long time ago working with Child Protection Services, there's two sets of people in Mississippi that our state legislature and our leaders will support 100% of the time, and that's children and veterans.
Absolutely.
And I cannot overemphasize the number of our state leaders that, since I have been here, have reached out, invited me to their offices to talk about, what can they do to better support our veterans, what kind of help that I need. So I have been fully supported at every level of state government, every level of the federal government.
Truth.
When we had the Jackson water crisis, the director of the hospital here reached out. The director of the regional office has reached out. The people from Washington, D.C. have reached out, and we would talk on the phone almost every day about what can we do to help you provide for our veterans. So with that kind of support, it just trickles down to everybody that works in our homes, everybody that works on our staff to do the best that they can do every day.
You always tell us that you're learning, right? And so it's incumbent upon all of us to teach each other the things that the other person might not know. I think that's important to hear a leader say that, hey, I'm still learning just like you are. So let's help each other out. As you continue to learn new things and you see the direction that you want this agency to go, kind of give the listeners what you feel that your vision is now, what it can be for this agency, and how do you see us achieving that goal of serving America's heroes here in Mississippi?
It gets proved every year. Our nursing homes and our cemeteries every year have an annual evaluation conducted by the Veterans Administration. Mm-hmm. If you go back and look historically, they've always shined, just like new pennies, at the great results that have been achieved by all of our staff. But you can always improve. And every time I go to the homes and every time I go to the cemeteries, they talk about, well, we can do this better and we can do that better. But I love training. I love learning. So my vision of cross-training everyone here is to make sure, because we all really did not like when you call somewhere and they say, well, I can't answer that question because Mr. Smith's on leave this week and it'll be next week before we get back to you. So my vision and my goal is to cross-train everybody. And that way, when somebody calls, we don't give them that answer. We can give them an answer. It may take us a little longer to get it than if the expert was here, but we can get back with them with an answer real quick.
Yes, sir.
So they can go ahead and process their claims, or they can go ahead and bury their family member because they need a 214 for the funeral home or our cemeteries or those type things. And that's the vision and the goal. There's no shortage of expertise here, and there's no shortage of super awesome employees. The shortage that we have is sometimes we get in state government, it just gets stovepiped into certain things. So we need to do better at training. And one of the big things that's hitting our state right now is a lot of our young men and women are leaving the state when they get their education. And we've got to do better to retain those Mississippians here. And I think the best way to do that is to bring them in and not give them a job that they do the same thing every day. Let's get them and let's start cross-training them, which makes them feel more valuable, which they will be, not only to us, but other state agencies if they want to go somewhere else and work later. But it's like Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines says, you train your people to where they can be the most marketable people in the world, but you treat them so good that they don't want to leave. And that's my vision here, is to attempt to accomplish that very difficult task and to keep these young Mississippians here in Mississippi so our state can continue to grow and prosper and my grandkids will stay here instead of move to another state so I can see them when I want to.
Absolutely. My last question for you, and you've spoken on this a little bit, but I'm always, wherever I go, whether it's in my official capacity as Director of Communications or if I am just out in the grocery store and someone sees me and says, hey, well, where do you work? Or if a family member asks me, where do you work? I'm constantly telling them about the great team that we have here. Because a lot of times at the top of the agency, or if we're doing interviews with media or you're out speaking, people get a chance to see Director Smith or Deputy Director Tommy Smith, or maybe the Director of Outreach or whatever it might be. But there are so many people that work for this agency that make it go every day. And I truly believe that we have some of the brightest minds in the state of Mississippi. What do you want people that are listening to know about the team that we have here at Mississippi VA?
The team that we have here is number one, professional. They're dedicated. They're caring. They're very ethical. Like I mentioned before, there's no task too hard, and they all treat each other with dignity and respect because they know that the team is what makes everything work. It's not just one individual. It's not me. Mm-hmm. It's not Tommy. Just like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, just like Colonel Taylor, he didn't get to where he was without the help of a whole lot of people.
For sure.
And in order for them to help him, they had to believe in his vision and they had to believe in what he wanted to do in order to help get him there. But as we work through the cross-training and pursue that and keep going, and we've had a great response to people reaching out, kind of telling us what they want to kind of be cross-trained in, and it's not where we're going to push it down on them. If they don't want to learn HR, then we don't want them to learn HR. They're not going to be successful at that. But if we have a finance person that wants to learn HR to see how the payroll system really works through Magic and works through the new EC program that we have working through Magic in the state,
yes,
it's only going to make them smarter and better able to progress as they mature in state government. But I've worked at, I guess, 5 different state agencies now. And the teamwork here is just about like being in the Army. Everybody works together. You know, you're always going to have an issue between people every once in a while. It's going to happen.
That's the real world.
But that's not a bad thing because, you know, the worst thing a leader can do is surround themselves with yes men or yes women, because then you know you're destined to fail. You need to allow your people to tell you what they think and consider what they think. And if you need to change, be the type leader that's willing to change. Because as I am here working with nursing homes the first time, I depend greatly on our nursing home staff, our administrators, Miss Gerald, everybody that's involved in that process every day to teach me how the nursing homes work and what works best and what they've tried. And so I don't make mistakes that were made previously, or I can capitalize on the great things that are going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, there it is. That's one episode in the books. Again, folks, that is our executive director, Mark Smith, leader of the Mississippi Veterans Affairs Board. Sir, I appreciate you taking some time out to be the first guest. We're going to have many more great episodes. And like I said, we're going to get into probably my favorite parts of this is going to be talking to some of those heroes, some of those veterans that we get to serve every single day. We'll definitely get into some of the programs that we have so that you, the veteran or the spouse of a veteran or the son and daughter of a veteran, so on and so forth, know what benefits and services are available to you. We want to make sure we use that as a platform for you all to be informed and make the best decision for you and your family. I want to make sure that we plug our social media so that you all know how we're constantly sending out updates. On Instagram and Facebook, you can find us by MS Veterans Affairs. So once again, that's MS Veterans with an S on the end, Affairs. Type that in to Instagram or Facebook, and you can find us there. We're constantly updating the latest and greatest that can affect you. On Twitter, that is at MS Vet Affairs, so at MSVET Affairs. And you can always visit our website, www.msva.ms.gov. You go there. Any updates that we have, any new information that may be beneficial to you, we'll always share it with you. Those are the engines that you can find us, those social media channels and platforms. We thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you join us again very soon. Until then, God bless.